My name is Lisa Lobo, a part of UCS as an external associate, and today I have with me
Avalon de Souza. Deloitte was a senior auditor and then moved into a senior tax role, and now I'm doing my Schulich MBA.
Nice.
And a UTM alumni.
And also with me is
Dua Inam, and I am the Communications Director at UCS.
Okay. So starting off with our introduction questions. So you briefly mentioned your position at Deloitte. So what was a typical day for you when you were working there?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think you must have got the answer quite a bit. There's no typical day for us because days vary depending on the client you have. So during busy season, they are long hours. During off seasons, not so much. So it depends when your year-end client is. And it also depends on the industry you're at. So when I was in Deloitte, I took on two predominant roles. One role was the auditor. I started off as a junior auditor, and then I went to intermediate, and then a senior auditor, and then I moved into tax. And I'll talk, if you guys want, I can tell a bit more about why I made that transition as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But from an audit perspective, I worked with a large team. Maybe let's revert back. I can talk to a bit about what Deloitte does and the team structure, and maybe that will give you more context on how a typical day is.
Yeah, for sure.
So Deloitte actually has 5 service lines. So we focus on audit, tax, risk advisory, consulting, and FAS. So FAS is our financial advisory services. So basically we do everything for a client except give them money because we don't want to be charged of from a financing perspective. From an audit perspective, we have public and private. So your public clients and your private clients, publics are IPOs and clients that are listed on the stock exchange, and private clients could range from anywhere from a startup to a growth company. Usually those are the clients we deal with, and NPOs as well. So in audit, I work in the public side, and public teams are usually like ginormous teams. So you would probably have a good 10 to 12 people. When I first joined the firm, we just acquired a client that we had won as a first-time client, billion-dollar client with operations all over the world.
Wow.
And so you're thinking about, okay, December 31st year end. I have to promote these financial statements by March, like beginning of March. In 2 months' time, I have to audit this billion-dollar client.
Oh my God.
So it's thrilling and it's exciting at the same time. Because as a junior coming in, you get to dip feet into a lot of sectors. So I was helping with the project management for like people from Deloitte Austria, Deloitte Germany. Then we also, so during that busy season time, just coming back to your question, those are long hours. Typically you're at the client side, which makes it a lot more fun. And you're with your team quite a bit. During off hours, you could be, from 9 to 5, 9 to 6. So when we talk about work-life balance, I think that's where the question's coming at. I don't look at any Big Four firm as a work-life balance. I look at it as like a work-life balance in 9 to 5. I look at it as, there are days you're going to be busy and the days you're not.
Yeah.
And that's how you revolve your life around. And you eventually learn how to do it right. But during that time, it's hard to calibrate, but when you're a young student, you always want to give it your best. So
You mentioned that you moved from audit to tax. The common perception is that that's a hard transition. Is it really that hard, or how do you go about it?
Great question. This is where I call hearsay, right? A lot of people will say, "Oh, it's hard to move to this, it's hard to move to that." I actually think the people that find it hard are people that haven't made an effort to move into it. It's actually not that bad, and I think it comes down to passion. At one point in time, you realize that okay, you know what? Maybe I need to do something different, and I feel like my skills are best utilized here. You reach out to a partner, and this is not me because I'm Deloitte. I'm advocating Deloitte from that perspective. The honest truth is, Deloitte partners are awesome. They work with you. They understand your goals. And I told one of my partners, hey, you know what? I'm interested more in the tech side. Right now, I'm dealing with more the manufacturing side, and I like more private tech companies because that was my space. I loved going out to entrepreneurship events and startup events, and I knew the tech community quite a bit. And the partner saw that, and he said, okay, fine, we have an opening in tax, would you be available? So, but then also it comes down to communication. You don't want to I got the tax role in December, I could have easily said, see ya, audit team, not going to work another busy season and move to tax, because tax is only busy from like April when are your personal returns, and then June is your corporate returns and stuff. But no, as I told my team, I'm like, listen, I'm giving you guys a 3 months head notice. Just letting you know, like I'm moving into tax after I got this pretty cool gig, and they were all happy for me, and they respected the fact that that I gave them that much of a notice, and I kept the team in mind. So it's not that bad of a transition. You have to network, you have to show a passion, and you have to give them a reason why. You can't be asking them to give you reasons why you need to be a part of their service line. You have to figure out those reasons by them.
And make the effort.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. And also another question, how was your overall experience working at the firm at Deloitte?
I loved it. Deloitte has so many service lines. So even though I did Deloitte Audit, because I come from a very technical background, I wanted to bring in innovation into the group. So I worked with the audit analytics teams quite a bit, using like data visualizations to present to our client better on our audit plan and what accounts we're going to test, what geographic regions we're going to test, and also what can we get out of it. I worked with audit analytics even on other projects where we wanted to simplify a process that we were doing a lot inefficiently, and Deloitte gave me rein to do it as long as I told the client. I told my partner and my senior managers, hey, I think this would help us. They let me do it. Apart from that, Deloitte Tax, my partner in tax was the tech leader at Deloitte Canada. And I loved working with him because he just knew how to he knew how to add value to clients. You could bring him in a room and he could identify what a client needs and how to help with that situation. And very, very humble guy. So there were a lot of opportunities. They let me run my own eminence program. I can't disclose about it too much, but it was geared towards training people to go meet different startups and stuff. And they let me run that program, and that was a phenomenal experience as well on top of my job. So yeah, tons of opportunities, and my friends are my family. I treat them that way. We still talk to each other all the time. I mean, when you're in audit, you're having, especially during busy season, just to give you a background, when you're at a client site, which is pretty cool, you're away from the office, you guys are all together. So you have sometimes lunches together, you have breakfast together, you have dinners together if you're staying late, and you tell them everything, right? They become your family. So I miss them a lot, but that was the culture at Deloitte. It's very family loving, and everyone has their sucky moments, but at the end of the day, that's like family. Yeah.
I have a question about data analytics. Do you get exposure to that as a first-year associate, or do you have to wait for
Great question. I think I'm always going to go back to this because Deloitte truly believes in this. It's about passions. If you're able to show, I had an amazing senior manager, UTM alumni as well, phenomenal project management guy. He identified that my skill was analytics. So I did some of the legwork where I made an effort to reach out to the Deloitte analytics teams to tell them, hey, I have some free spot during this time. I'm not staffed on a client. Do you mind me helping you out on a couple of projects? And it was a value add because I could bring in a different perspective to my audit clients. And then my senior manager saw that and he said, hey, Avalon, I need help with this Excel file, or we need to do this scoping for our client. Can you help me out? And what would take him a long time to do it would take me probably 5-10 minutes, because just with that background. So yes, they do support you quite a bit from a Deloitte analytics perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So now we're going to our part 2, advice for undergraduate students seeking work opportunities.
I love this.
Yeah. Basically, this is going to gear more towards our audience. They want to be in some kind of position like you in the future.
Yeah.
So what would you recommend to students at UTM who are working hard to get an opportunity to work and gain experience at one of the big 4 firms?
Amazing question. Here's my take on things. If there were 2 things I would ask every student at UTM to focus on, is this. The first one, your resume. And now people will say, well, obviously, Avalon, I need to focus on my resume to get a job. No, really, really dig deep. Your resume is your life map. It tells the client where you want to go, or a potential business, where you want to go and why you want the role you want. So if you're not able to explain it on paper, how are you going to explain it in real life? And so what do I mean by that? Just to get into the nitty-gritty details. You have your experience, right? Under your experience, do you first identify, is everything that you identify in your resume apart under that experience a unique skill? Does it explain leadership skills and analytical skills? What we call those are power words. People see that and they go like, wow, okay, this person is helping me understand what his resume is about.
Yeah.
And this is similar to a STAR approach where you put your skill, your action, your result, but you condense it into one line. So you should be showing that skill, action, and result. Why does this help? When you go through that process of identifying, it makes your life a lot more easier during an interview or even during regular conversations. You're able to identify that, okay, fine, if someone asks me about analytical skills, this is the experience I'm going to pick. If someone asks me about leadership skills, this is the thing I'm going to talk about. And you have it written down, so you're never going to like go back to your interview notes or whatever. So number one, resume is key. I went to a business banquet, I think last year, and we had a speaker come in and he gave a phenomenal idea, and I hope UTM students are using this because I use this a lot. And it's called the Superstar folder. And basically what it is that every time someone says something good about you, or you're in an article, or your prof said, hey, like amazing job. I wish profs did that. But if they did do that, take a screenshot of it, maybe hide the prof or email or whatever, and like put it in that folder. That's your Superstar folder. So when you go to a client or your company, you want to show them like, hey, like this is what I have to offer. Everyone will give in a resume. What makes you stand out? You have to present it differently. You have to showcase like skills. Like it's common sense, but it's things that like put you in a whole different league. The second thing.
That's really good advice. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. The second thing is your networking skills. Now, I know there are two kinds of people in this world: introverts, extroverts that are also half introverts that are half extroverts. So for those, like, use your skills best to your ability. If you're an extrovert and you like going and talking to people, that's what you should be doing. If you're an introvert and you're not too keen on talking to people but still want to learn, start with LinkedIn messaging. And I know people say like, okay, but how do I really do that, right? The easiest way to do that is if you know someone, a friend, a family, someone else that says that they know someone in an industry, just reach out to them. Say that, hey, like, I'd like to talk. I know you have a friend who works at Deloitte or whatever. Do you mind if I just talk to him? And like, look, Lisa reached out to me. I came here to help you guys out, and people are willing to do that. Everyone loves mentoring people. I've met with hundreds of UTM students and worked on their resumes and cover letters, and I don't think I've ever shunned anyone down. They just reached out to me, and people enjoy doing it. So do that. I know networking in a group is a whole different league as well. Like, you have one person, there are 8 people or 9 people around, you're trying to get in, you're like, okay, how do I get in, whatever. And now you're talking to this recruiter and they are just going on a rant and they're not here to hear you out. Identify opportunities around that. So I think one of the things I did was I found ways to get around that. And what I meant was, the one thing I did was my friend Rishi and I would go to events together. And what we would do is we would boost the other person, depending on the interviewer we had. So the networker. So if it was one person, then I'd say like, oh, have you met Rishi? Rishi's actually a superstar, a senior board of ambassador. And then Rishi would go to another client, and then Rishi would say the same thing for me. So that's one way. And that way, then you have 2 people, that are the major concentrations. The second way is, say suppose a recruiter's talking a lot and you didn't have a chance to talk, and this guy's just talking about his trip in Australia or whatever. You could say something like, thank you so much. I know I've been asking you a lot of questions. Do you have any questions for me? And that removes the spotlight from them and then focuses on you. And at that point, you better have a good elevator pitch because you just put yourself in that situation. The one advice I'd give with that is make sure you answer that question first and not everyone else in the group, because the moment it goes to the third person, there's a whole new conversation happening. So there are so many tips and tricks to improve your networking skills and conversations and get around that. Make sure you always carry your business cards. Make sure you thank. And I know recruiters always say this, but it's so crucial. Like, no one, out of like the 100 students I meet, I will only get like 4 or 5 people that ever say thank you.
Wow.
And those are the 4 or 5 I always follow up with them. We talk to each other on LinkedIn. I meet down with them for coffee. We identify what they need to work on, and then introduce them to other people from different firms or even Deloitte as well, to get a better knowledge. I mean, people are willing to do that. You just have to give us a chance, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that one. And the last thing is just your support system. Your I know I said two, but the last one I would say was support system, like your group of friends. Make sure you guys all working to improve each other and challenge each other to do better. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, I've heard a lot of things that I've never heard about before, like networking tips. It was very like out of the box.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned networking and standing out, and of course your resume. Would you consider GPA a make or break factor as well?
Great question, and I get that a lot. And I'll tell you this. I think this is my version of it. I don't know the right answer. If I ask you a question, Lisa, why do you think companies look at GPA?
Because they want to see if you're qualified to do like the basic accounting.
Okay, and do you think GPA is a make or break?
I guess like for me, from what I've heard also, is like it has to meet a minimum requirement of it, like at least a 3.0. So we know that we're not going to have to hire a second person to like check your work as well. So I think as long as it's around that range, I think you should be fine. Like I've heard.
Go ahead.
I have a different take on GPA. I personally feel that, hiring, it's just it takes so much time, right? Like, yes, when you look at somebody's GPA, you get a good indication of what they're able to do. But I mean, there's so many factors that go into GPAs, right? Like, I feel what firms want to do is they want to kind of use it as a filter as well, to a certain extent. Obviously, not like only to kind of filter students out, but I feel that like now there's like a huge shift towards like soft skills and like other things that students are doing as well. So I guess it depends on how well connected you are in that sense. Like if you don't know anybody, then it would be like a make or break factor. But if you know somebody, then there's so many things about you that can actually work for you, even if your GPA is not that well.
Yeah.
Right. So
And I agree with both your points. Those are some very, very valid points. My key take on the GPA, especially for CPA students, is this. At the end of the day, a firm is hiring you to do a particular job, which is your audit job or your tax job or whatever. The GPA is, yes, a filter at times, but it's a filter in my mind for other reasons. And the filter is that, number one, you need a GPA cutoff to do the exams. If you don't maintain those requirements, then you can't do the CPA exams, right? It makes no sense. So that's the first reason. And that's why like we always focus on soft skills as well. The second thing is what a GPA does. I think what it is like when you're going through the CPA process through Deloitte and Ernst & Young and KPMG and PwC, they want to know that students can actually pass those exams. Right? Like, are you compatible enough to pass these exams? Have you shown me before? And that's the only way they can do it is through a GPA. I think those are the predominant factors why GPA is important to do your job, and also from a passing the exam perspective. Apart from that, like, it's just then your soft skills.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I've heard, because this question is very popular for like especially most recruiters, and it's like all over the board. Some people say it does matter, but not really. And
you have to also think about it this way: like at a certain level, it may matter a bit more because you don't have that experience, or you don't think you have a lot of experience.
Yeah.
So it may seem that that's the case, but if you're able to showcase other things to represent why this GPA is a bit lower than everyone else's GPA, then you should be fine.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Because I think that's like a big thing that people stress about, but they don't realize like it's like the whole picture, not really just one thing.
Yeah, stress on it is good.
Yeah.
But identify how you can get over it. I think that's the biggest thing.
Exactly. Yeah. For part 3, advice for students that have secured an internship and full-time position.
Do you want me to take over from there?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, awesome. So a lot of times students stress so much upon, getting that job. They feel like that's the hardest part, but in my opinion, like, yeah, at this level, it's hard, but it is the easiest part of your entire career. There's so many students right now that have secure jobs. I feel that what's more important is how do you do well in your job position that you've just gone into. So my question is, how is the performance of new graduate hires and associates evaluated at accounting firms?
So I'm not too sure how they do it in other firms. I can tell you what Deloitte initially did and what they've moved on to right now. So before, what Deloitte would do is you would have a coach. You would meet with your coach pretty much like every 2 months or so. They ask you about your goals, how are things going with the client, how are things going with your team, do you like what you're doing? And if this is what you don't like, then the coach would say, okay, fine, have you tried talking to this person or that person? So it depends how resourceful your coach is. And then what you'd also do is at the end of the year or mid-year, and then at the end of the year, you would be evaluated. The senior managers and partners that on the audit teams you work on will come into a board meeting and they'll say like, yeah, like, I work with Avalon, Avalon's a great guy, or Avalon doesn't even know what he's doing, right? Like whatever. So, and then based on that, you get rated. Deloitte's gone away from that system and they've done something new. It's called the Reinvented Performance Management, RPM. And what it is they've realized that people have different skills, right? Not everyone is technically focused. Some people may be really good at client relationships. Some people may be really good at analytics. So how do you get that? If I was a company and I wanted to understand what Avalon is in a nutshell, how do I figure that out? So what this performance evaluation does is every project that you work on, they encourage you to have meetings that they track in this performance system. So you kind of put down, okay, I met with this team member today and I told them about the goals. And then you have even a snapshot, okay, like how did the project go? What did you work on? What do you think yours? I think they even focus on skills. And at the end of the day, during that meetings, they have this whole snapshot of you and they say, okay, fine, Avalon seems like he's more client relationship oriented. What can we do to get him more involved with that stuff, right? And also keep on like continue on his job or whatever. Or like Lisa seems like she's more analytical. How to and like do us it's more communication. Like how do we? And so that's the kind of conversations they have at Deloitte right now. They just implemented the system last year. They piloted it this time. I think it went pretty well. I wasn't around for the results, but it seems like a great way to engage their employees, so that the employees understand that they're being looked after from a skill perspective and not just being funneled into something that most maybe other firms are currently doing right now. But I'm not 100% sure on other firms' performance ratings.
Are there any particular performance metrics that the firm uses?
So there are a couple of things. Number one is billable hours.
Okay.
And I think in audit that's a big thing. How utilized are you?
Okay.
Right? So if say suppose there are times you aren't utilized, then what are you doing during those times? And those are like billable hours because firms mostly focus on billable work. I think that's like the major key metric. And then apart from that, it's just your extracurriculars. What are you doing differently?
Okay.
Yeah, I have friends that have started women in leadership courses and they send out a newsletter every week highlighting someone, an audit partner or a tax partner or a consulting partner who's a woman, and it's pretty cool. But they share the article with everyone, so I read it and I enjoy it a lot. So people do different things.
That's cool.
Okay. So you don't work at Deloitte any longer, but based on personal experience, how would you score the company on living up to its core values? And what's the one thing that the firm continually works to improve?
So two things that the firm continually works and improves on is people and client. And when I say people, there's always a lot of trainings that you do at Deloitte. They always want you to educate yourself. It's a wealth of knowledge with people all over the world. If you don't know, like if a client has an issue, someone at Deloitte knows the answer to that question.
That's good.
And they spend a lot of time educating their people, doing a lot of trainings. We have like our new Deloitte offices that open up in Bay and Adelaide. And they have a Deloitte University over there where we do our training sessions, and they put us up at the Fairmont because they like to give us that whole lifestyle togetherness. The second thing is clients. We focus a lot on our clients. Like how can we help our clients? How can we get them to be better? And that's either understanding where's the world headed in the next 5, 10, 20 years. Who can we introduce a client to? What technology do we have that we can implement at the client? Deloitte acquired 5 blockchain startups last year in hopes to help our clients out. So there's just so much that we do from a client management perspective just to give our clients the best value possible. That's the culture, I think, in Deloitte itself. It's all about helping your clients, about being leaders, and also being very innovative. My rating at Deloitte, if I give it a 10 out of 10, I know I'll be biased, so I'll give it like an 8 out of 10. Yeah.
So, okay.
And also a question, how
Yeah.
you were saying there's a lot of mentors and training.
Yeah.
Also, did you do your CPA while you were in Deloitte?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, and how was that? Because I
Oh.
want to know that.
Angela, if you hear this, I know you're from Deloitte. As Angela Khaled is our Deloitte training officer, and she's actually one of the best in the planet.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
And I think that's why people even like firms, apart from the brand. They like them because they provide a training office where people where they have like a structured plan to succeed. I remember in the old exams, we had like a 94% pass rate on one of the exams. I mean, like, it was all about 90%, and I think every firm scores the same. So yeah, they have a rigid schedule. I think you're off for like a month. I actually did the last batch of the exams, of the CA exams. So I was studying since January, and I wrote the CKE in May, SOA in June, and UP in September. So 3 months I got everything done. And a couple of my best friends from who worked at Deloitte at UTM as well, they did the exact same thing. They work with you for a good chunk of time. They have a schedule in place. They'll offer trainings. You go to them. Then you have a chart that you follow that says, okay, do this case on this day. And if you don't get this case right, debrief this case. And then it's a whole process in itself, but they'll walk you through it.
That's
and
amazing.
they're there to help you out, like, pretty much. And all the firms are that way. I don't think I have a bias with Deloitte itself. Every firm does their best to get their students get through those exams. And like, there are people that don't pass it, and it is like everyone understands it's a tough exam, and no firm. I think after like maybe 4 or 5 tries, people might be like, okay, fine, what's really going on? But I've known people that have like not even gone. I know one person that hasn't gone 5 in a row, and they made it finally. Wow. But that's the kind of like culture you have. Like, people will be there to help you out, support you.
That's awesome.
Awesome, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. So what sort of internal policies do accounting firms in general stress upon?
So when you say internal policies, do you mean
Not for hiring, but just generally, like, in terms of the work that's done.
Yeah, I mean, like, common things: don't send financial data over your Gmail account. Don't speak about client stuff out in public, right? Because what happens is, when you're working on a client at times, sometimes you're helping a client through an IPO phase and they haven't announced it yet, so you have to keep quite quiet about it. What else is there? Internal accounting policies. Yeah, I think that's about it. And I mean, like, they're just things that you just got to keep it confidential. I think those are like the big ones.
Probably the big one, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And how do the firms ensure the quality of their output given the number of employees and the amount of resources?
So when you're a junior coming into the firm, you have a whole bunch of reviews that you go through. So a senior will review your work, then the manager will review your work, and the partner will review your work. I remember in my first year, and this was like my biggest learning, one of my first tasks that I'd ever done. You're a student, you go, the senior says, hey, Avalon, go talk to this client, right? You go talk to the client gives you a reason, you come back and you document, you do an audit documentation, you say, okay, this is why I think, it was a review, so I was like, this is why we believe the variance went up, and it's obvious, but my senior was like, hey, Avalon, like, all right, so let's sit down, let's talk about this. I was like, sure. He's like, what did you get from the client, right? And I was like, what do you mean what I got? I got a response from the client. He's like, no, did you check any documents? But I'm like, it's a review, so I don't know how much to check. And he's like, no, but like, you still need some assurance right over it. And then it was so funny that I just put that. And the biggest thing is, like, when you get to a partner level, partners take the time to review your work. They really do. And they review, like, if you're talking about a $1 billion client with different like cash and like all these are huge chunk accounts, and they have to review all these testing procedures from a controls perspective, from a division perspective, from corporate perspective. They are so knowledgeable about the industry. They can identify something wrong from like just looking at it.
Wow.
And that's the level of experts that we have at Deloitte at that level, right? And people aspire to be like them. They're actually quite inspirational. Like, I had my partner Adam Burke, Stacy Nagel, and Scott. Scott was a U.S. partner that came in. phenomenal people. They could just look at a project, at like a documentation, and they could be like, all right, what's going on here? Like, I'm looking at these numbers, they don't match. Like, this doesn't make sense. And they make you go back, talk to the client. Like, that's, Deloitte focuses a lot on quality of work. Like, I kid you not, our audit standards and our documentation is, we actually have trainings on that, just so that the quality of work that comes out of it is good. Because if when we get selected by PCAOB to review our files, we want a no surprise experience, right? We want them to say, okay, clear, check off, you guys did a good job. And one of my clients were actually picked for a PCAOB, and we passed the inspection, which was pretty phenomenal. And they said they were very, very, very happy with our work. And so that's a lot, we place a lot of emphasis on quality of documentation.
Okay.
Amazing.
Yeah, one piece of advice I'd give to UTM students is that UTM students are very, very, very innovative students. I've noticed that they're very entrepreneurial mindset. So keep getting at it. Don't be ever discouraged that things aren't going your way. We're known to be a small school in a giant world, and like firms don't come to our campus. What's going on? Like, it is a case that happens, but you have to find a way around it, right? No one was meant to spoon feed you in this world except for your parents, I guess. But find a way to get around it. Find family, friends you can talk to. Go out to events and showcase the best version of yourself. At the end of the day, you look at all the UTM students that graduated, they're all leaders in their own field. Everyone has a job, so don't be scared about that. Just put your best foot forward, and you guys will do pretty amazing. Yeah, I mean, we did. So.
Thank you so much for coming out, and we wish you the best of luck with your MBA and career.
Thank you.
And
awesome.
your wedding.
Hey, thank you. All right, good luck, everyone.
Thank you so much.